According to the United States Department of Health and Human Services, about 5 children die every day from child abuse. We all need to do everything we can to stop abuse. I was a victim. When I was in the 6th grade, I finally got up the courage to tell a teacher. However, instead of her reporting it correctly, I received a severe beating because she had called my father and told him what I said. Today, I want to make sure that this never happens to another child. Today, I am going to inform you of the types and signs of abuse, the procedure to report it, and the consequences for doing so incorrectly. The first type of abuse is physical abuse, which is non-accidental harm that can range from bruising to death. Some of the signs of physical abuse is unexplained injuries, fading bruising, or other marks after an absence from school. Sometimes the child will seem scared, depressed, anxious, withdrawn, or aggressive. The child will not want to go home or will shade away from adults. There may be changes in eating and sleeping habits, and some children will start to treat animals the way they are being treated. Finally, some children will tell you about the abuse. The next form of abuse is neglect, which is not making sure that the child's basic needs are being met. This can include physical, medical, educational, and emotional needs. The most common signs are going to be frequently absent from school, beg or steal food or money, may not be getting the medical care they need. They may always be dirty and have a severe body odor. The clothes they wear may be inappropriate for the weather, or they may use drugs or alcohol. Next, I want to talk to you about sexual abuse, which includes any inappropriate acts such as molestation, fondling, rape, exposure, exploitation, sodomy, penetration, and incest. The children may show the following signs. They may have trouble walking or sitting, have bleeding, bruising, or swelling in the private areas, may not want to go to school, may report having nightmares or wetting the bed. Sometimes the child will have sudden changes in appetite or show more knowledge or behaviors of sexual acts than is appropriate for their age. If a child becomes pregnant or contracts a sexually transmitted disease, especially before the age of 14, this may also be a sign. The child may run away or attach to new adults quickly, and finally, they may tell you about it. Finally, the last form is emotional abuse, which is making the person feel worthless and includes being put down, screamed at all the time, or sometimes the adult will not even acknowledge the child at all. Some signs of emotional abuse can include being overly compliant or demanding, or extremely passive or aggressive. They may be either inappropriately adult or inappropriately infantile. They may have physical or emotional delays in their development and may show signs of depression, thoughts of suicide, or self-harm. Some children are also unable to develop and keep bonds with others. Now that you know the signs of abuse, let us talk about how to report the abuse. When you suspect abuse or a child comes to you and tells you, do not ask too many questions about it. Ask only the things that you need to say to the authorities. Never call the home or place where the abuse happens. If you don't report the abuse correctly, it will lead to more injuries or even death. Also, according to Jay Hopper, if a child told someone and they didn't report it, or blamed them, or even ignored them, this can cause more harm than even the abuse itself. Also, do not make promises that you can't keep. It takes courage to tell someone about abuse. Most of the time, the abuser threatens the child or someone they love. There are 3 main ways to report abuse. 1, you can contact your local Child Protective Services agency, call the hotline number for your location, or call Child Help, which is a national child abuse hotline, at 1-800-4-CHILD, 1-800-422-4453. Some people may think that it's none of their business what goes on in another person's house, but I ask you to think about this. Several things can happen if the abuse isn't stopped. The child can have post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as PTSD. According to the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, a child's risk of developing PTSD is related to the seriousness of the trauma, whether the trauma is repeated, the child's proximity to the trauma, and his or her relationship to the victim or victims. For many years, I was being abused. I now can see the signs in other children and remember acting the same way. No one reported the abuse in my house. However, I was one of the lucky ones. I survived. In closing, now that we know the types and signs of abuse and how to report it, I hope if you recognize the signs, you will report it correctly and not let the consequences fall on another child. One child dying from child abuse is too many. 5 children dying a day is a tragedy. Let's continue to work together to end all abuse and stop any child from suffering.